I recently was asked how I came to accept science after years as a young earth creationist Christian that finally allowed me to accept evolution. There's a confusing myth among some atheists that creationists don't accept or believe in science. That's actually quite untrue. Many strongly believe in science. The problem is they fail to understand what it actually is and what science actually says and why it's true and how it's proven to be true. This video is actually a collective summary of many of my old videos that I go into way more detail on the topics on, so we'll be posting links to these old videos throughout the video. The methodology of science is rather foreign to them. They have a very limited understanding of how the system works to keep bad ideas out. Their core belief is that science is what you see after it's replicated in a lab, or a manipulation of math formulas to find new ideas out. This is because they confuse science, engineering, and invention. If you can't repeat it, then it's no different from astrology or alchemy, even though that's exactly what forensics does, and they're more likely on average to be for the death penalty, and forensics has even less research and evidence to back it than evolution does. Evolution was, of course, just a system created to try and get people to lose their faith and fall away from Jesus. And quite a few of the proponents of evolutionary theory were also heavy into spiritualism and dealt with seances and Ouija boards, making them obviously in league with Satan, though many other scientists of other fields were also involved at that time. It's the same as vilifying pro-choice advocate Margaret Sanger because she was involved in eugenics, when many of the preachers they laud as godly people were also deep in eugenics at the time. They believe that real science has been infected with atheists, aka Satan worshippers, or people duped by them through bias, which is why they won't allow Bible-based truth into science, not understanding that science's number one purpose is to eliminate bias when discovering truth. Creationists also believe something that Americans especially are really bad at believing, that facts that are taught are locked in place and they are clean rules that are never changing. It is from these rules that they can rules lawyer their way to logically discovering new explanations, ideas, and conspiracy theories. The logic to it may be beautifully complex, but what they fail to realize is that every single fact you know is actually dumbed down. Many times they are almost always true, but quite often every rule has an exception or many exceptions. It is the reason the Dunning-Kruger effect is so powerful in the US. Americans have a ton of very shallow knowledge. It makes them feel smart and knowledgeable. The more you dig into a field of research, the more you understand just how dumbed down it was, so you could grasp the basics, and just how deeply complex the reality of the topic is, and those facts you learn in school are more a rule of thumb than an actual fact, and you are never told how we prove that fact to be actually true. That is why creationists can believe that they actually believe in science, because by coming up with explanations to fit the Bible, they actually believe they are doing science. Prior to understanding skepticism, I used to create quote-quote theories that explain things. I thought I was actually doing science. I did it with high school chemistry and academic mythology. It even included one to explain matter and energy and gravity. But once I read a book by Brian Greene, a theoretical physicist, my beautiful idea collapsed. I never bothered again, mostly because I did not understand how physics got those facts, and those facts I knew were just seriously dumbed down. I had a ton of facts in my knowledge bank, which made me feel more educated than I was, but what I know now about science skepticism and particle physics is microscopic, and the experts who know exponentially more than me on the topic still have microscopic amounts of experimental data needed to decide anything close to explaining what I attempted to explain with my quote-quote theory. This sort of confusion about the level of agnosticism the theoretical physicists have about their entire field, and just how they determine what they do to be true, and all the variables and exceptions to rules and experimentation, and level of dumbed-downness the field has just to explain things to us lay people, is the number one correction I have to explain to even skeptics and atheists. I know many atheists and skeptics who still don't understand the limits of their own understanding about fields they're not adequately educated in. Having opinions on quantum physics is strong among atheists, as they think they can do just as I did, and understand something people who spent their lives in their field don't understand, and most of that is due to limitations of experiments they can't physically or financially do. In 2006, only 7% of the nation could accurately describe how the scientific process worked, and what controls and double-blind tests are. I myself wouldn't have passed that scientific literacy test, even after getting my BS in microbiology. So with this culture of misunderstanding of how science and evidence works, even among people in academia and science field, is it any wonder that pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, woo, religion, alternative medicine, climate denial, and Trump supporters are so pervasive in this country? The intellectual environment is incredibly fertile for a confused science enthusiast to reject evolution and wholeheartedly embrace creationism and think it's science. My love of science is what led me away from religion. But it wasn't until much later that I actually understood my own limitations in changing science, and just how conservative and draconian science is to weed out good from bad ideas. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. Stephen Hawking.